watcher. Nobody noticed a man in the parking lot. Not the teachers, not the crossing guard, not the parents in the pickup line, and certainly not the children. But Walter Cain noticed everyone. He sat in a rusted green Chevrolet Suburban, windows fogged, radio off, hands steady on the steering wheel, even though the car hadn't moved in over 20 minutes. His eyes scanned like a machine, not fast, not frantic, just precise. He knew what time Principal Howard arrived, 6:52. He knew the coffee delivery kid always parked too close to the hydrant, 7:01. He knew the 11-year-old boy in the red hoodie always looked twice before crossing the street, until yesterday when he didn't. Walter noticed, because noticing was all he had left. He used to wear a badge that didn't exist, walk through doors that didn't open for anyone else, give orders no one dared question. Now he wore a faded army jacket with a stitched-on name tag from a dead cousin. He lived in a trailer park on County Road 9. Hadn't spoken to his daughter in 8 years. Didn't care much for cable news. Didn't own a phone. But he still remembered what danger looked like before anyone else did. And today, something was wrong. 7:13. A dark blue Dodge Ram pulled into the west lot. Nothing unusual, until the driver turned off the engine, but didn't get out. Walter leaned back, slightly. The truck's tags were local, but the sticker on the back window was from a dealership, 2 states away. No movement, no music, no phone light, just stillness. And that was always a noise. Walter knew how to hear. He didn't panic, didn't pick up a phone, didn't make a scene. He just wrote down the plate number on the back of a crumpled gas receipt and kept watching. Then movement. The driver stepped out. Late 20s. Black hoodie, jeans, heavy walk. Too heavy. Weighted. His shoulders didn't match his frame. There was something beneath the hoodie. Bulky. Stiff. Too high on the chest. The man opened the back door of the truck. Pulled out a duffel bag. Black. Not full, but structured. He didn't head toward the school entrance. He walked around the side. Near the loading dock. Out of camera range. Walter exhaled slowly. He reached under his seat, pulled out a small black notebook. The inside cover had 3 numbers handwritten. 911, County Dispatch. And M, no area code, no full name. He skipped all of them. Instead, he pulled open the glove box. There was no gun, just a pair of reading glasses, a folded campus map he'd picked up weeks ago, and a small black object wrapped in cloth. A folding mirror, like the ones used for under-vehicle sweeps. Walter stepped out of the car. For the first time that morning, the parking lot was quiet. Kids were starting to arrive. Parents honked. A crossing guard smiled. And no one noticed the old man walking behind the trucks. He moved slowly, not because he couldn't move faster, but because predators didn't run. They crept, and Walter Cain had hunted enough wolves to know when one had entered the flock. As he rounded the far corner, he spotted the man again. He was crouched beside a power junction box. The bag was open. Walter saw black plastic, wiring, and something small and metallic, glinting in the morning sun. It wasn't a weapon yet, but it could be. Walter didn't speak, didn't call out. He stepped forward. 2 meters, 1 meter. The man looked up, eyes locked, and for the first time that morning, someone noticed a man in the parking lot. No weapon, no backup. When you've lived in the shadows long enough, you stop waiting for permission to move. Walter Cain's boots crunched against the gravel. The air was cool. Sunlight cut through low trees, sliding across the top of a silver HVAC unit like a knife. He didn't break eye contact, didn't blink, didn't smile. The man crouched near the power box had paused, but not in fear, in calculation. Walter had seen that expression before, on men with too much inside them, too much rage, too much belief, or nothing left at all. The bag was still open, a black molded shell case inside. A single green LED blinking faintly. Wires. Foam. Precision. He wasn't guessing anymore. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. Walter spoke. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just clear. You don't want to do this. The man's jaw tightened, but he didn't run, didn't speak. Instead, he slowly zipped the bag. Deliberate, methodical, like a man who trained for this moment, who wanted control, who expected panic, but got a voice instead. Walter took one step closer. Look, son, whatever you think this will prove, it won't mean what you think it does. 5 minutes after it's done. No response. You hit that switch, and the only thing anyone remembers is your face on the news. But I promise you, there won't be a headline that says why. The man's hand twitched, not toward a weapon, but toward something inside his coat. Walter lifted both palms slowly. No weapon, no badge, no backup, just me, talking. The man's nostrils flared. Who are you? Walter tilted his head, smiled faintly. Just someone who's seen what happens when people stop listening and start reacting. 7:20. A bell rang inside the school. The side door clicked open somewhere behind them. Children's laughter echoed faintly. Walter didn't turn, didn't move, didn't blink. He just kept his voice low, like a wire between two cliffs. You don't want to be a name. That makes them do active shooter drills every September. Don't be that chapter in their textbook. The man stood up, slowly, bag in hand, face pale, but jaw still locked. You think you know me? He asked. Walter nodded slowly. No, I don't, but I know pain. I know isolation, and I know what it does when nobody's there to stop the shaking. He took one final step, now less than 2 meters apart. You're not a monster. If you were, you wouldn't have waited. The man's lip quivered. Then, his fingers loosened. The bag dropped to gravel, soft, like the sound of a decision being unmade. Walter stepped forward, gently kicked the bag behind him. The man just stood there, silent, breathing hard, chest heaving beneath the hoodie. And for a long, fragile second, nobody moved. Then the door opened. A teacher's voice called out, "Sir, are you supposed to be back here?" Walter turned slightly. "Can you get Principal Howard for me?" The teacher blinked, then nodded. The door closed again. Walter looked back at the man. He was shaking now. The rage had melted. In its place, something far more dangerous. Shame. Walter didn't offer comfort, didn't offer punishment, just presence. That was all he had left to give. And that, sometimes, was enough. 7:23. Sirens in the distance. Not loud, not urgent, just part of the rhythm of a day that had almost turned into a nightmare. Walter Cain exhaled, closed his eyes, not in relief, but in memory. "I never pulled a trigger today," he whispered to himself, "and that's the best kill I've ever made." The interview that never happened. Candled the day after Birch Creek Elementary. Some heroes disappear before anyone realizes they were ever there. And some never let the world say thank you. By sunrise, the school was back to routine. The flag was raised. The buses lined up. Teachers opened doors, greeted sleepy children. The air felt normal. Too normal. Like something heavy had passed overhead and was now gone. But nobody could name it, except one, the janitor. He stood near the west fence, hands in his jacket pockets, staring at a trash bin that hadn't been moved. It was the exact spot where the old man had stood the day before, still, silent, and forgotten. The sheriff's statement, live at 9 a.m. We can confirm a potential threat was neutralized without injury. The suspect is in custody. The community is safe. Pause. Flashbulbs. We are aware of an unidentified individual who may have played a role in preventing escalation. If you're that person, we urge you to come forward. But Walter Cain, was already gone. Principal Howard, alone in her office, sat watching the same security footage on loop. One man, slightly hunched, approaches the suspect. He speaks. No sound, just movement. The suspect drops the bag. The door behind them opens. A teacher steps out. Then the man turns and vanishes from frame. She rewinds again, zooms in, watches his posture, his calm. She writes one note in her planner. A glance changed everything. Teachers were interviewed. Students asked questions. News van circled. All said the same thing. He was always there, parked out by the old fence. Never said much, always watched. And no one ever asked why. Mia Sandler, 28, reporter for a local affiliate, smelled something deeper in the story. She wasn't looking for a hero. She was looking for a reason. She interviewed parents, staff, local shopkeepers. Every answer was similar. Old guy, kind of quiet, just always there. She visited the parking lot, found an old coffee stain on the pavement, a single crumpled gas receipt, license plate numbers scribbled in pencil. She unfolded it slowly and whispered he wrote the suspect's plate, hours before anyone even noticed. She published a piece that night. The Man We Owe But Can't Name. It went viral across the country, shared by veterans, mothers, teachers, but Walter Cain never read it. He didn't have a phone, didn't check news sites, didn't care for applause. He was already 160 miles north, driving into the mountains. His truck was old, his radio was broken, but the silence inside was peaceful because in his mind, he replayed the only moment that mattered. The bag dropping, the boy not dying, the hallway staying quiet. That night at a roadside diner, he sat in a booth alone. A kid passed by on the way to the vending machine, stopped, looked up at him. Walter nodded. The kid nodded back. No fear, no recognition, just a quiet connection. And for Walter, that was worth more than any headline. Back in Birch Creek, the school locked its gates. Teachers whispered. Parents shared screenshots of a blurry security image. But the man in the picture was no longer part of the picture because some men lived to stay behind, to open doors, to close stories, and then disappear before the credits roll. The Voice in the Hallway. Mantelpiece Clock, Langley, Virginia. 1986/somewhere in Beirut, 1987. You don't become a ghost by dying. You become a ghost by surviving something you shouldn't have and staying silent about it for the rest of your life. Before Walter Cain was a man in a parking lot, he was a whisper, a shadow on a hallway wall, a name never signed, a decision never spoken aloud. Langley, 1986. Walter was 29, fluent in Arabic, Russian, Farsi. Field clearance, non-official cover, no photographs, no digital trail. He was the kind of man who could sit in a hotel lobby for 6 hours without moving once and still walk out knowing everyone's habits. He didn't smile much, didn't drink, didn't believe in luck, only patterns. And when they broke, Beirut, 1987, he was posted as an attaché. It wasn't called a war, but it felt like one. The embassy had taken damage. The streets were restless. His mission was low profile. Monitor local communications, intercept soft chatter, report anything unusual. But Walter had stopped trusting the word unusual years ago because some horrors aren't unusual. They're just undetected. The school was in Hamra, American-sponsored, mostly diplomat children. He'd walk past it every week, always scanned, always memorized. But that day, that hallway, something shifted. He was early, his contact was late, so he waited and listened. Children were in class, laughing, learning, feet pattering down linoleum floors. Then, one sound, a squeak, a pause, a single door closing too softly, and one voice. "Don't worry. This won't hurt if you're quiet." Walter turned his head. He wasn't supposed to engage. He was supposed to observe. Note, report. But the voice didn't belong in that hallway. And that sentence was not a line you forget. He stepped forward, opened the door. What he saw is something he never told anyone. Not his handlers, not his director, not even the child's parents. He stopped something that day. Something small, something quiet. But it cost him everything, because the man he stopped was the son of a local warlord, with ties to a Western intelligence channel. The report never made it. His clearance was suspended. He was reassigned, then forgotten, not because he failed, but because he acted before permission. Back in Virginia, they said, "We don't disavow you, but we don't need you now." He asked, "What about the kid?" They looked away. "We've handled it." Handled like furniture, like trash, like silence. That hallway never left him. That voice still rang in his head every morning. And he swore to himself, "If I ever hear that tone again, I don't care if I'm old. I will move. I will intervene. And this time, nobody stops me." So he watched schools, parking lots, cafeterias, churches, places where innocence echoes too loudly, not because he thought the world was evil, but because he knew sometimes it was. And when no one looks, evil speaks in hallways. And that's why, on that morning in Birch Creek, when a voice behind a school wall whispered with too much tension, Walter didn't hesitate, because he'd heard it before, and this time, he wasn't too late. The paper that was never filed. Mantelpiece clock, present day, Washington, D.C./Northern Michigan. Some files never make it to the archive, but they live inside the people they saved. And sometimes, those people come back, looking for the ghost who disappeared. His name was Kareem Malik, age 7 when it happened, now 41, dual citizen, nonprofit director, fluent in English and Arabic, 2 children, lives in D.C. From the outside, he was a normal man, a good man, a quiet man, but his silence had a reason, and its name was written on a memory he had carried since 1987. He never told his wife what happened in that school hallway, never told his therapist, never even wrote it down, but he remembered the man who opened the door, who didn't ask questions, who didn't wait, who pulled the adult off him. Without words, without fear, the man who held his hand for 5 seconds, then walked away forever. That face, he thought he'd never see it again, until the day he saw a new still from Birch Creek Elementary. Low resolution, washed out, but unmistakable. That posture, that stillness, that man. Kareem flew to Michigan 2 days later. He didn't tell anyone where he was going, just said, "There's someone I owe." It took him hours. Gas station stops, public library terminals, backtracking through archive property records to find one rusted trailer on County Road 9 and the green Suburban. Out front, he didn't knock. He just stood there in front of the trailer in the pine-drenched silence and waited. The door opened slowly, and Walter Cain stepped out, gray, thin, unarmed, but still towering. Their eyes met. Kareem spoke first. "You saved me once." Silence. Beirut. 1987. You opened the door. Walter's face didn't change, but his hands slightly relaxed. He looked down, then up again. "They told me not to. Said it would cause problems." Kareem nodded. "It caused life." They sat on lawn chairs in the dirt. No table, no coffee, just air between them, and everything it carried. Kareem pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat. "I wrote this when I was 11. It was supposed to be a report for school, the person I admire most. I wrote about you. My teacher failed me, said he wasn't real." He handed it to Walter. Walter didn't unfold it. He just stared at it, as if paper could weigh more than history. "I didn't think I made a difference," Walter said. "You didn't. You made me." They sat for over an hour, mostly in silence, occasionally in memory. No apology, no explanation, no request, just presence. And when Kareem finally stood to leave, he turned back once more. "That boy you saved, he teaches other kids now. Kids who don't speak. Kids who've seen things. I listen for the voice in their hallway because you taught me that someone should." Walter didn't respond. But when Kareem's car disappeared down the road, he finally unfolded the letter. The handwriting was messy, the paper torn, but one line was still legible. "I think angels don't have wings. I think they just open doors." The file room, Candle, Langley, Virginia. CIA Archives Division. Sometimes the ghost is real, and sometimes the ghost still breathes. There are rooms where truth doesn't echo. It waits, and one of those rooms was 3 levels below Langley's main entrance. Cold, dry, windowless. Welcome to the file room. Eleanor Grant had been in that room longer than most of the analysts she trained. She wasn't flashy, didn't chase field glamour. She chased shadows and patterns. Her job wasn't to uncover secrets. It was to decide which secrets stayed buried. But that morning, at 9:17 a.m., a keyword search triggered something she hadn't seen in over a decade. Birch Creek Elementary, civilian intervention, unknown operator. See Beirut 1987. Her finger paused above the enter key. Beirut. She knew that year well. She remembered the embassy bombing, the internal chaos, the silence that followed. She leaned back, closed her eyes. Who the hell did we send into a school in Beirut? And why does a shadow still show up 35 years later? She opened an interagency access request panel. Input, search, Beirut American Affiliated School, 1987, asset unknown. Response, archive tag, half-walk, access level restricted, clearance temporarily overridden. That override was an accident. Someone in the past wanted her to see this, but not log it. The file opened, black and white, old typewritten scan, most of it redacted, but what remained said enough. Unregistered mail, operative behavior, intervened inside secured civilian structure. Subject terminated presumed threat, extracted child, left site, not recorded under any known operation. Do not follow up. Final tag, mission status. Handled. File unfiled. She whispered aloud. Unfiled but not forgotten. She leaned in. There was a name once. Faint, only visible when she tilted the screen. Cain, W. A single mention. Bottom corner. Pencil note from someone long gone. She knew what that meant. Off the books. No handler. Solo intervention. Total deniability. He was buried. Intentionally. But something about that name triggered a second ripple in her brain. She opened a public-facing Birch Creek report. The one from a week ago. Still image. A man standing near a suspect behind the school. Shadowed. No name. No statement. She ran a facial structure comparison. The AI hesitated. Then pinged. Match. 87.9%. Subject. Cain Walter Thomas. Status. Inactive/reassigned/no record after 1988. Eleanor stood up from her chair. Not from surprise, but from the weight of recognition. He's still alive. And no one knew. She went to the deep print archives. Not digital. Paper. There on row D72, folder 604C, was a printed photo. CIA ID from 1986. Walter Cain. Younger. Cleaner. But same eyes. Same silence. She sat with the file. Alone. For nearly an hour. Didn't write anything. Didn't make a report. Just listened to the quiet of a building that had spent decades burying the very man who may have just saved another school. Again, she whispered, we turned him into a ghost, and now he's haunting our failures. Then she printed a memo. One copy. Unmarked, it read, "Internal note for record only. The individual seen at Birch Creek Elementary is presumed to be Walter Cain, formerly CIA Ops Analysis Flash Field. Subject participated in unregistered field actions in Beirut, 1987, including the extraction of a civilian minor from threat. File was suppressed. Subject appears to have continued unsanctioned civilian surveillance of soft targets over the past 2 decades. Status, unknown. Location, believed to be Upper Michigan region. Suggested action, none. He doesn't want to be found. He wants to be watching. Eleanor didn't send it. She folded it, placed it in a personal folder, then locked it in her desk. Not because she feared what would happen if people found him, but because she knew what would happen if someone tried to stop him. And so she returned to her routine. But that night, before leaving Langley, she paused in the hallway, looked at the marble wall of honor, the stars carved there, no names, just absences. She tapped the empty air beside one of them and whispered, "This one's for you, Walter, the one we never asked to serve, but did anyway." The stranger at the door, Candle, Northern Michigan. The day the past knocked twice. Some echoes walk in. They don't shout. They just stand there, wearing a backpack, and someone else's fear. Walter Cain had been awake since 5:03. He always woke before the sun, before the crows, before the memories. He had already boiled coffee in the old dented kettle, shaved with a dull razor, and checked the gravel trail behind his trailer. Twice, routine kept the ghosts away, until the knock came. 3 times. Soft, uncertain, not like the police, not like agents, like someone small, asking the world for permission to exist. He opened the curtain, saw him immediately. Kareem Malik, the man whose life he'd once rewritten with a single decision in Beirut. But Kareem wasn't alone. Next to him stood a boy, 13, maybe 14, thin, hollowed eyes, shoelaces loose, arms wrapped around himself, like he'd learned. The world didn't always deserve his voice. Walter opened the door, didn't speak, didn't blink. Kareem simply said, "This is Samir." And the moment those words fell into the air, the silence between them became ancestral, like something passed down, not genetically, but spiritually, through pain. They sat outside. No porch, no welcome mat, just 3 plastic chairs, facing the woods and the wind. Walter watched the boy, the way he didn't make eye contact, the way his foot tapped even while sitting, the way he pulled at the end of his hoodie sleeve, until the cuff unraveled. He knew that language. It was the dialect of the watched, of those who had once been prey. Kareem spoke slowly. The fire drilled 2 months ago triggered something in him. Since then, he doesn't talk at school, sleeps with his shoes on, won't go anywhere without checking every window twice. He paused, looked down. They say he's hyperaware, that he sees threats that don't exist. But I told him, maybe he just sees them before anyone else does. Walter turned to Samir, studied his face, eyes too old for his face, then reached into his coat, pulled out a small square wrapped in cloth, unwrapped it, held it out, a folding mirror, worn, scratched, still sharp. "This helped me stay alive more times than I can count," Walter said. "You don't need to fight when you can see." He handed it to the boy. Samir took it with both hands, as if it were glass, as if it might reflect something he wasn't ready to look at. He angled it toward the woods, then his own lap, then Walter's face, and softly, barely a breath. "Even when they think you're not looking." Walter smiled, not because it was cute, not because it was a breakthrough, but because it was true, and the truth always deserved a nod. Kareem exhaled. His shoulders sagged for the first time since arriving. That's the first thing he said to anyone who isn't me in nearly half a year. Walter just kept looking at Samir, then reached down and tied the boy's loose shoelace. No lecture, no comment, just care, and a man who understood. that small things held worlds together. They stayed for a while, didn't talk much. Walter showed him how to angle the mirror, to see behind a car without bending, how to listen to gravel, to hear the difference between footsteps and wildlife, how to fold a map so that the important part never creased. Samir said nothing, but his hands remembered everything. Before leaving, Kareem turned back. His voice was quiet. He asked if he could come back. Without me next time. Walter paused, then opened the trailer door, walked inside, and returned with a folded piece of paper. Handed it to Samir. Inside, a diagram, Walter's personal checklist, for scanning a parking lot. Each box written in block capital letters. At the bottom, a line, you don't have to speak to see, and seeing is everything. Samir clutched the page, looked up for the first time. His eyes didn't avoid. He nodded, not as a thank you, but as a signal. I understand. As they drove away, Walter stood beneath the pine trees. The wind tugged at his coat. His hands were cold, but his eyes looked younger than they had in 20 years. He turned, walked inside, sat down at the kitchen table, took out an old notepad, the kind with yellowed pages. At the top, he wrote, Samir watches, and if he watches, maybe I can rest one day. He closed the book, not to end anything, but to give it weight. The parking lot doctrine. Candle somewhere in Michigan, one man, one notebook, one truth. They never asked me to write this, but I'm writing it anyway, because if I don't, this dies with me. The notebook is old, yellowed pages, coffee stains on the corner, spiral bent from years of being sat on, tossed aside, picked back up. Walter Cain writes slowly, each letter deliberate, like carving into stone. He's not making a manual. He's writing a confession for people who will never know what he did, but will live in a world he helped hold together, one parking lot at a time. Page 1. Why I watch. Because I've seen what happens when nobody does. Because doors close fast. Because threats don't come with warning signs. Because when I stopped once, a hallway stayed quiet. And that was enough. Because someone has to. And I'm not waiting for someone else. Page 2. The rules, scribbled in all caps. No bullets, just truths. Never park too close to the entrance. You're not there to be seen. If someone waves, wave back. Even if you don't know them, they might remember your face later. Count the children, not to report. To remind yourself why you're there. Learn the janitor's name. Learn the teacher's routine. Notice the ones who hang back. Sometimes they're the ones who need you most. If something feels off, it probably is. Act without being seen. Speak only if it helps. Never pull out a gun. Pull out a decision. He pauses, puts the pen down. The wind rustles outside the trailer. Pine needles tapping the metal roof. He closes his eyes. Remembers that hallway in Beirut. That broken boy. That silence. Then the parking lot in Birch Creek, the weight of the air, the sweat on his palms, the exact moment, the bag hit the ground, and the quiet that followed. That quiet was louder than any explosion. He opens his eyes, flips the page. Page 3, the things I never said. I was never a hero. I was a man who saw something and didn't look away. I don't need medals. I don't need recognition. I just need to believe that in the moment when it mattered, I didn't blink, that I stayed, that someone else walked away. Because I didn't. Page 4. To the one who comes next, you won't get thanked. You won't be seen. You won't be believed until it's too late. You'll be tired. You'll question yourself. People will call you paranoid, call you broken. But listen to me. Stay. Because when it happens, and it will, they'll need someone whose hands don't shake. They'll need a ghost who doesn't run. They'll need you. Walter sets the pen down. The page is still open, ink still wet. He doesn't sign it. There's no need. His name is important. Only the doctrine is, He places the notebook in a weatherproof envelope, tapes it to the underside of his trailer sink, where someone will find it. One day, someone watching, someone tired, someone who thought they were alone, until they find this and realize they're not. Outside, the sun begins to rise. Children miles away pack their backpacks. Mothers sip coffee. Crossing guards put on neon vests. And in a forgotten trailer in Michigan, an old man sits in silence. But he is not gone because his watch isn't over. Not yet. Clapperboard Silent Stories. The end.